Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined today by really special guests. We have Joe and Max Bachmeier. They founded, own, operate Bach Brothers in Fredericksburg, Bach Bros in Fredericksburg, Texas, and they are our recent winners of AirDNA's 2025 Top Property Manager Awards. Clap, 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 clap. Guys, welcome to the show.
Jamie, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. We're just as surprised as you that we're here, but we're honored.
Yeah, so we had our award show last week where we sort of outlined the categories. We had done 9 different categories across cleaning, most amazing, best budget property managers, and you guys won our overall ranking. And for those listening, just a brief primer on how we did it. We looked at reviews across Airbnb and Vrbo, and essentially it's just like which property managers had the best ratings across all their listings. And for the national rankings, you had to have more than 100 listings. And for our market level rankings, you had to have more than 20. And yeah, so you guys won for, and I think you guys have, it was like a 4.957 or something across like all your properties. As someone with one property, having over 100 and maintaining that level of getting 5-star reviews, just sounds crazy. So before we get into the why, maybe just start with like, how did you guys get into short-term rentals? When did you get started? And how did you pick Fredericksburg to get started in?
Yeah, so we just celebrated our 4th birthday this month. Max and I bought our first property here in Fredericksburg. We became owners before managers. We launched our first property and we found a need for it. When we were preparing for this call, Max brought up, we didn't even have a name for our property management group till we hit, I think, 15 or 20 properties. To this day, the account is still under my name. It's Joe Bachmeier. It's not Bach Bros Properties. And that's a strategic decision that we made to be more personable, to connect better with the guests. You know, Max is the data guy. Max is looking at the numbers on how can we best perform. When a guest is reaching out to a corporation, they have a much different vibe than when they're reaching out to an individual. So that was a strategic decision, but there was no master plan to build it to 100 properties. It just kind of happened along the way. It's been a roller coaster, and being here is it's exciting, but it kind of, you know, you get beat up constantly with tough guests and negative reviews, but then to get an honor like this kind of makes it all worth it.
Yeah. So take me back to the beginning days of you guys sort of buying the first property. Was this something that you guys were looking to turn into a full-time business? Was it just like buying a property on the side? Like, what was the initial motivation?
Yeah, we both had full-time jobs. I was actually working for a financial technology company in New York City, and Joe was working with in real estate here in Fredericksburg. But we both are from New York. We both moved down here, and it was never really a time where we said, "Hey, let's let's try to be property managers and start a business here." We genuinely saw how successful other property owners, managers property owners have been here in Fredericksburg. And we were like, well, let's see if we could get a piece of that action. Like the Airbnb stuff looks really cool. So let's dive into it. Let's buy a property of our own and start renting it. And that's where it all started, right? And we probably got our first 3 bookings in like the first 5 minutes because we had no idea what we were doing on pricing. But we learned really quick what works and what doesn't. And that was kind of a major, I guess, tool in our toolbox that helped us get to this point where, right, we were property owners, and still are. So we very much operate that way.
So Max, Joe described you as the data guy. So was there a lot of data that went into sort of picking that first property, picking in Fredericksburg as the market that you guys were going to operate in? Or was it just because Joe was already in Fredericksburg?
I wish I could tell you that we analyzed all this data in AirDNA and saw the perfect property and made that driven decision. I didn't become the data guy until after we failed and learned and just went through all the trials and tribulations. But he often calls me the guy behind the curtain because I've learned very fast through buying this property in Fredericksburg. Again, really not a whole lot of strategy other than, all right, this is a property we can flip, and we know that the Fredericksburg Airbnb market seems to be really doing very well. And so the learning and the data and the understanding the trends all came kind of through experience. So that's where I started to, explore software like AirDNA, explore software like dynamic pricing, and really look at comp sets and understand like what determines a property success, not only in occupancy but in profitability. So that definitely came at a later date, but we got lucky. It was a little bit of a mix of luck and hard work on that first one.
Yeah. No, and I suspect some of it is just like the growth of the market too, in terms of like Fredericksburg has been one of the fastest growing markets in the country. Like Austin has been, I feel like, ground zero for growth in post pandemic, with a ton of tech companies sort of moving their headquarters, a lot of high net worth individuals sort of moving to the Austin area. And you look at where people are coming from if they're traveling to Fredericksburg, it's Austin, it's San Antonio, it's Dallas, it's Houston, and Texas has been so big for growth. So that's gotta and helped at least some in terms of and be able to grow into a growing market.
I think it was an AirDNA publication actually that was it ranked Fredericksburg very high on its list because of all the feeder cities that were surrounding it. So, being from New York, it was Fredericksburg, Texas, or even Hill Country, Texas, wasn't something that was on my radar. But once I moved down here, I realized how big of a market it really is, and how popular it is. I mean, in just Texas, but now growing nationally, which is really, really awesome to see.
Yeah, for everyone listening, so Fredericksburg it's becoming like the next Napa. I mean, it's the Napa of Texas. We have over 75 wineries here. We're an hour and a half from Austin. We're an hour from San Antonio. We're very centralized in Texas to Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth. It's a drivable city for everything. So market downturns, recessions, things like that, we're positioned very well. Where people can get in a car and drive 2 hours and be here for the weekend. So yes, the big strategic decision, being here, being in this market that's rapidly growing, positioned with so many wineries, and then, the following after the wineries, now you have all these great restaurants coming in, distilleries, great shopping options, more, commercialized developments, and really just a lot of wonderful things happening, not just in Fredericksburg, but the overall Hill Country in general.
Yeah. So typically when I talk to property managers, there's this theme that scaling is hard, and scaling in hospitality is really hard. And that the larger you get, like essentially like once you get more than 20 listings, it's really hard to stay over like a 4.9. And once you get over about 100 listings, it's really hard to stay over like a 4.8. And like the average like individual host Like you got one listing, they're averaging like a 4.9 on Airbnb, 4.95, 4.93. And you guys have scaled to over 100 units or are able to maintain more than a 4.95. Like in some ways, it seems like looking at the data, like unbelievable that you guys were able to do it. So like, and maybe starting with that basic question and maybe asking you guys both, like, how do you think you're able to maintain these high levels of guest satisfaction as you've grown to the level that you're at today?
Stress. It's not easy, and we lose sleep over it. Max and I grew up in New York, right? And there's this like regional. We were talking about this earlier. There's this regional supermarket chain up there. I think they were founded in Connecticut. Stu Leonard's, and anyone from the area will know them. And they have this sign out front that's etched into stone, and it's like we have two rules at Stu Leonard's. The first rule is the customer is always right. The second rule is if the customer is ever wrong, refer to rule number one. And we have to bite our tongue a lot, and we have to deal with some issues that maybe aren't our fault, or maybe we get a nitpicky guest. But one, we have to educate the guests on the review process and experience, because Airbnb, VRBO, and the others, they see a 4-star review as bad. In the hotel world, a 4-star hotel is incredible. So it's an education process. And then it's doing everything in our power to make sure that the hospitality of the guest is number one. And we're doing everything in our power to make sure that guest is happy, be it running over 2 bottles of Texas Hill Country wine when something goes wrong, or sending over our maintenance manager to fix something immediately in the middle of the night, even though maybe it's not an emergency, but the guest feels like it is. So really leaning into that guest experience and that hospitality, and making their emergency, I'm putting it in quotation marks because maybe the coffee maker is running a little slow and that's their emergency, making that an emergency on our end allows for that 5-star stay. And there's other things that Max can dive into too, but that is the root of it.
Yeah, the guest is always right, even when they're wrong, is a a great motto to live by. And also something else that we've always said is just always do the right thing. You have to take it with a grain of salt. Some guests, like Joe said, you kind of have to match the guest's energy a lot of the times, right? Telling a guest when they have AC issues, hey, thanks for your feedback. We'll look into it. Or we'll have someone check it out. That'll just set them off. You really have to match their energy, match their tone. Oh no, I'm so sorry that's the case. Let me give you a call and see if we can troubleshoot this right now. And that's our first line of defense. Like let's troubleshoot with the guests, see if we can figure something out. If we can't, let's send someone from our team, send someone out to go there with sometimes a bottle of wine, and go see if they can resolve the issue. And it's a powerful tool. I mean, to be able to just send someone out there and immediately de-escalate the situation. And we lean really heavily on our quality control team. So we have a quality control team that will actually go to properties before every guest checks in, and make sure, do a scan of the property, be a second pair of eyes after the cleaner, and make sure that, hey, there may be a maintenance issue. Okay, let me notify the maintenance team right away and see if they can get this resolved. Or say you have a guest checking in at 4 p.m., something's broken, and the quality control team flags something at 3 p.m., the maintenance team doesn't have time to go over there and resolve it. Well, then, okay, the quality control team will bring that to our communications team. They'll reach out to the guests and they'll say, hey, we noticed this issue. We want you to know that this issue exists and we're doing everything we can to fix it. Please let us know if you'd like us to come mid-stay and address it, or if you'd like us to take a look at it after you check out. It is, more often than not, this is like the most proactive communication that helps disarm a guest. We were able to spot an issue, and then of course you can always assume two things, right? If it's not addressed, the guest is going to either think we're negligent, or the property manager is negligent and didn't bother to fix it, or that they're either too hands off and weren't even aware of it to begin with. So that's kind of what you got to put yourself in the guest shoes in those situations and say, like, okay, what are they going to think if they weren't already notified about this issue? And so that allows us to disarm them and address the issue and maintain that positive experience for them.
So again, I'm going to go back to conversations with other property managers of like when, and they sort of, I suspect that they hear you say that, they're like, all right, Joe and Max, like, that's easy to do when you're responding to all the messages, right? That's easy to do, and when it's in a relatively small number, or where you can and really and have a knowledge and sort of and create that level of ownership because you own the group. But like, and once you start scaling and you've got so many people sort of responding their own ways to messages and not wanting to go out to a guest place at midnight to fix a coffee maker when they're not going to use it for another sort of 12 hours. How have you sort of instilled that, like, as you sort of grown the team and to keep that level of experience? Because from my experience, like, not many others have been able to do that at that scale.
It's hiring the right people. It's A players. It's like you can hire 3 or 4 or 5 C players, but 1 A player can replace them. And it's setting your expectations, and then it's being very heavily involved. Max and I are very heavily involved in messaging. We're very heavily involved in the quality control checks and in the cleans and in all aspects of the business. And for the last 17 minutes and 50 seconds, we haven't checked the messaging. So there's probably a problem out there. Now our team is going to handle it, but we're on top of it. We're on top of it, and our team has the ability, Jamie, to issue a refund to a guest, to issue a credit. If a cleaner misses something, they have the autonomy to say, "Hey, that's an issue. Okay, boom, we're gonna proactively. We didn't even see the property. We're gonna refund your cleaning fee," and immediately the guest is like now disarmed, and then we can handle a situation. So you have to be on top of that. You have to set your expectations. And then probably the single best thing that we did as a company that I would highly recommend to any manager once you get over probably 25 properties is to hire somebody individually, and it could be yourself, that checks a property before guests come in. That's not your cleaner. The cleaner comes in, they can do a phenomenal job. They can be the best cleaner in the book, but they miss things, especially in the outside areas. I've noticed your grill, your hot tub, your front walk, your lawn, your weeds, things like that. So having that additional set of eyes to come on the property before that guest shows up can catch 9 out of 10 things that would have been caught. And then that one thing that slips through, now that's where you pick it up on your communications team. And like Max said earlier, your communications team has to match that guest's energy. That's so upset because their coffee maker is not working. You have to match that energy and be so upset that their coffee maker is not working. And every single guest message that we send out when there's an issue tries to have a solution. But then at the end, it is what else can we do to make this stay better? So you're not only you're addressing the issue the best you can, but then you're also opening the door to the guests to make sure that they're happy with that resolution.
Yeah, and that's I love that, and I feel like you guys are speaking directly to me because pre-show I was telling you about how I had to go up and sort of make something right for a guest because the hot tub going to get turned on after the cleaner left. I was like, man, if I would have had that in person checking the property before the guest came in, like, it would have solved that issue and not become a problem. The other sort of feedback I would usually hear, and maybe this is a question for you, Max, is like a lot of the higher rated property managers, and they're getting highly rated because they are just undercharging. Like guests love a great deal. And if you're really sort of revenue maximizing your property, like some number of guests are going to feel like they're not getting enough value for what they got. And then maybe like I mean, that's true of like, if you're truly revenue maximizing, then you're not going to get 5 stars because, and your goal isn't necessarily at the end of the day, like all 5 stars. It's to have a profitable company. So how do you guys think about sort of that value trade-off with that might come with, how a guest might review you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Being competitive on one thing I've noticed is actually value is one of those common things that are just an easy lever that guests will pull when they're rating a property. They'll say, "Hey, cleanliness was a 5, accuracy was a 5, value it could have always been cheaper." You know, and so it's a tough metric to wrestle with. Um, we do work really hard to be as competitive as possible, right? And trust me, I mean, you will get some guests that score a really great rate at a beautiful property and still complain about a lot of things. So it's a balance for sure. But my priority, my my uh, my focus is always to prioritize a little bit of a blend between the occupancy, right, and that RevPAR. The average nightly rate, especially midweek, is like midweek stays are where a lot of money is left on the table, I think. So being able to book midweek dates at fair rates, and still maximizing that occupancy and allowing you to in turn allow you to continue to keep that RevPAR as high as possible. I mean, I see a lot of property managers and just you know regular owners who host their own properties. They'll keep a very high average nightly rate, and it almost to a fault, where you're seeing 20-30% occupancy, and they may be content with that because they want higher quality guests. But as far as maximizing an owner's revenue, it's there is definitely a balance to it, but trying to boost that occupancy is really, really key. And not lowering rates too low, but being reasonable, right? Being reasonable about where you're positioning yourself.
And Joe, so Max mentioned sort of the sort of conversations with owners. How do you guys sort of approach owner relationships? Because it seems like on the two sides of a property management company, and obviously on the guest side, you guys are crushing it. How do you guys approach the owner side? And you guys feel like it's just as healthy on, as the guest side?
Yeah, it's a balance act, right? Because you want to keep the guest happy to keep your rating as high as possible, but you have to keep the owner happy because if you don't keep an owner happy, we don't have any inventory. So the process with an owner, I hold their hand through the whole process. I'm the person that meets with them first, and I'm the person that they can go to when they have a problem or question. And we're very involved with the owners. It's fine to have team members that talk to owners, and we have to do that with the size that we are, but staying very involved with them, listening to their concerns, and proactively explaining to them what we're doing. We often do calls with owners on sometimes on a monthly basis to show what our strategy is. What's our pricing strategy? Why are we advertising low rates midweek? Why are we offering one night stays midweek? It's a larger picture. It's an occupancy play to boost our ranking, to play into the algorithm so that they can get those monster bookings for those holiday weekends and those event weekends. So it's involving the owners, it's communicating with them, it's getting ahead of market trends. We are in a big push right now in our market to optimize our listings. We're once we hit that 100 mark on properties, we put we kind of tapped the brakes a little bit and said, okay, now let's focus on optimizing the properties that we do have and taking on the right properties going forward. So what does that mean? That means the design aesthetic of the property. Let's not just take on any property. Let's take on the right properties. And the properties that we currently have that can benefit from that, what we've done is we partnered with some phenomenal interior designers, and we've worked hand in hand with current properties and said, hey, this is where your property's at. This is where it can be. Work with this interior designer, get it where it needs to be, spend a little bit of money to increase it. We have 3 or 4 pools going in right now at properties that we have convinced those owners that put a pool in. You're going to set yourself apart from the market. And this is going to be the return on investment. So holding their hand, working with them through the process and explaining to them, okay, here's how we're doing it. And those are tough conversations that I've noticed a lot of other property managers don't want to have. They don't want them to see their pricing software. They don't want them to see how the sausage is made on their strategy. And we do it. We're an open book. Max will get on a screen sharing call with our pricing software and an owner and explain everything that we're doing. And then the owner, their blood pressure goes down and they allow us to do what we need to do to maximize their revenue and deliver for their guests.
No, that's great. What do you guys think is like when you think about maybe marketing yourself to new owners, and what is the thing that and sort of set you guys apart? Because looking at Fredericksburg, like it's a highly competitive market with a lot of great property management companies in that market, and you guys aren't only ones with good reviews in that markets for like and highly scaled property management companies. Like it seems like a very competitive area. So what do you guys and either of you answer, like what do you guys think it is that's sort of setting you apart that allows you to be, does it sound like, picky now on which owners you want to bring in?
Yeah. Can I share our secret sauce, Max, on what we did in the beginning of the year that really took us to the next level?
Go ahead.
Okay. So one, it's the first thing is word of mouth, right? So you need to deliver, and word of mouth spreads, and this person knows that person, and that's how we started. In the beginning of the year, we stole this idea from one of Max's buddies. We pulled a list from the city of Fredericksburg of all short-term rental owners, and we wrote them 2 or 3 handwritten letters, like just introducing ourselves, saying, hey, if this isn't your occupancy, if this is not what you're at on revenue, call us, we'll get you there. If it is, great, congratulations. So we sent like 2 or 3 letters that they saw us, and we would write their name on it, we would sign it, we would underline things. The front of the envelope wasn't designed, and we got a great response. And then the last letter that we sent, and we don't have to do another one now because we have plenty of work, we mailed one final letter with a dollar bill in it. And we said, here's your first owner's payout. It was an actual dollar. We were like, we're so confident that we're going to deliver for you. Here is your first owner's payment. Look forward to working with you. And then our phones just went crazy. And a lot of people just called saying like, well, that's a fun marketing idea. I love it. We're really happy, or we're managing ourselves. We don't need you, but we'll save your contact. That was in the beginning of the year, and we're in August now, and we're still getting calls from it. So it was very powerful. And it was like a really fun marketing idea that we did.
We operated, for the most part, though, the first 50 properties that we managed we didn't advertise one bit. I mean, it was all word of mouth. So Joe's really speaking to that marketing strategy really was what got us from that 50 to 100 mark. But I mean, like AirDNA is kind of the metrics that you guys look at, which is that overall host rating. It's been a really important part of what we push to owners, and what we kind of explain and educate owners on. Anyone can have a listing that is a 5-star listing, but the weight of having a host rating of a very high host rating, it is equally important, maybe more important. And a lot of people don't realize that. They look at their listing and they say, well, it has 5 stars. I don't know why it's performing poorly. Well, it's not because guests are going to look, and some may, but it's not every day a guest is going to go on Airbnb and go, hey, let me see what the host is rated, in order to make my decision to book this property. But where that host rating really plays a huge factor is that Airbnb algorithm. And that same thing goes across all OTAs, right? That Vrbo, Booking.com, and the rest of them. So maintaining that high review rating, I think, has really helped us show up, on the first page search results, has allowed us to really stand out. When we launch a new listing and it doesn't have any reviews yet, sometimes it can be a struggle. I mean, for us, usually we're able to really hit the ground running, and I really attribute that to our host rating. So that's why we're almost neurotic about maintaining that. And like you said, Scott, as you grow, it's incredibly hard to keep that score from going, or really just staying the same, right? Because once you reach a certain size, it's a volume game. So it's only a matter of time that it starts to slowly decline. Believe it or not, we actually, now knock on wood, we have not seen it decline yet. We actually saw it go from maybe a year ago, I think it was a 4.94, and we saw it tick up to a 4.95. So we were just over the moon that we were able to not only increase our portfolio size, but also improve our host rating. I mean, that I think is when it comes to like, what's the secret to this success? I mean, it's a lot of different things, but that has a huge part in it. I think you're placing yourself on platforms that are all algorithm driven. These are all data driven platforms. They want to push their best and brightest. They're technology companies. They want to succeed, and so you kind of have to play their game a bit.
No, that's I love that. I mean, there's definitely a game there to be played, and figuring out how to play that game can really set you apart. And that sort of marketing strategy of going after everyone. So when you sort of sent out those messages and sort of set that level of what and if they weren't earning that level, they should call you. Did you guys like come up with an estimate for every single short-term rental?
We did. We basically did averages. Yeah, we basically we pulled data on what the average listings were. Oh, actually, the first mailers, what we did was we actually pulled the average of what our properties were producing. So we tiered it out. Here's what our 2 bedrooms are doing, or here's what our 1 and 2 bedrooms are doing. Here's what our 3 bedrooms are doing. Here's what our 4 bedrooms are doing, 4+. And we put the numbers out. We put the range, and they were actual numbers. And then we put our average occupancy number across our whole portfolio, and we let owners kind of decide. I mean, the thing is like we want to be able to take an owner on or take a new property on and turn it into really great results. We want to yield great results for them. So a lot of times we'll have people that call us and go, hey, I have a new property. It's a beautiful property. It does super well. Occupancy super high. We make good money. We're very happy with the money we're making. And we'll look at the listing. We'll take a look, and we'll plug it into our software, and we'll run our projections. And we're very matter of fact. If they're performing really well, we're like, hey, you are performing very well. I think this is, whoever your property manager is now is doing an outstanding job. We're not going to tell you to switch because, now, of course we want the business, but, we've always kind of, that's been kind of a key to maintaining owners, right? It's just transparency and being real honest about, hey, your listing has room for improvement, or, hey, I think your listing is performing really well. We'd love to manage it. What's the other reasons why you want to switch management? Maybe it's not because of the performance. Maybe it's because of the customer service, or maybe it's because of the, the relation, whatever it is. And we're happy to continue to, try to help them. But again, I mean, it's, we've been very straightforward with everyone that every lead that we've gotten. And I think it's a breath of fresh air for a lot of owners.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you guys about sort of the market performance. So Fredericksburg, and as we talked about at the beginning, has been a sort of hot market. There's been a ton of supply growth over the past few years, and you guys have been a major player now in the past couple of years in terms of, and you've got a lot of properties. You now have multiple properties that have sort of seen multiple years of performance. Like, how are you guys seeing the market? Like, and looking high level, it seems like Fredericksburg occupancy has been coming down the last few years, as it has been nationally. So it seems like it's getting more competitive. It's getting harder to push rates. So like, what is the dynamic that you guys have been seeing playing out?
You hit the nail on the head. It's become a lot more competitive. and it's become really important for properties to really shine. And that comes down to the overall aesthetic of the house, the decor. Like Joe had mentioned, we've worked with some really local, some great short-term rental designers, interior designers that really can transform the place. And often for a really reasonable budget, right? You can really, I mean, you have a B and B with things that with pops of color and some nice wallpaper and something that just really grabs your eye and is a scroll stopper on a platform like Airbnb or Vrbo. That's it's a clicks game, so Fredericksburg has become much more competitive. So we've noticed some of those, a lot of properties now are starting to make those improvements, make those updates, adding an additional amenity like a game room or a hot tub or a sauna or a pool. And that's been really key to staying ahead of the competition, is just, not being scared of making those improvements. Sometimes, reshooting the photos, getting some new throw blankets, right? Things that pop. And so we have an owner in Austin who, recently she has beautiful, beautiful property, and it's always done really, really well. But we noticed competition was just real fierce, and she had made these awesome updates, and we reshot it and we relisted it, and boom, it was like instant, right back to the top of the search results and performance. So making those improvements is going to be is key for sure.
Yeah, and you have to care. You have to care about those. You have to run towards the owners, not away from them. You have to be the first one that's saying, "Hey, the market, it's competitive. Like, these are the numbers we're seeing. This is year-over-year numbers. Like, your numbers are down. Don't let them come talk to you. Talk to them." And in that case, in that property in Austin, we went to them and they saw it and they believed in it and they made the investment and it worked. And you need to be careful and work with the owners that will make those improvements.
What is powerful too, I'll add, is that what I'll do a lot is I'll look at the numbers like Joe said year over year, and we'll display that to the owner. We'll say, hey, look, not only for your listing is it down maybe year over year perhaps, but in the market it is as well. And so you're seeing let's say a decrease in occupancy. That doesn't mean that there's lower demand. It just means there's a lot more supply here and competitive competition. So what I'll always do is I'll show how the market's performing, and then more often than not, we've been very fortunate to be able to say, hey, now here's how your listing's performing. Now, yes, it's most likely going to be following a similar trend, but you're outperforming that market, and you're outperforming this comp set that we've put together for your property, and that's great news. But how can we take things to the next level? And so that's always something that's kind of at the top of our mind, especially in a market like Fredericksburg, where you can't just buy an STR anymore and throw it on Airbnb and throw a fresh coat of paint on it and say, hey, this is gonna be a profitable project. It was once maybe that way, but again, with competition, it starts to really weed out the lower performing properties. So,
Well, and the other question I had there is when and maybe it's and somewhat answered that by that, but like when you see the sort of pressure on the performance side, and where do you see that pressure sort of showing up in your business? Like, is it ein owner retention? Is it ein sort of pushback on sort of management fees? Where does that start to show up in your business? So obviously, if RevPAR is coming down, like you're gonna, and if in your revenues, like as a percent of fees, like that might show up. But do you get pushback in the sort of business model in other ways?
Yeah, a lot of owners think their property is, their gifts to the world, and it doesn't matter. There's some competition in the market. My property is amazing. You have to have those conversations. You have to show what's going on, and you have to be ahead of the curve. You have to be. It sucks. You have to self promote too. You have to say, "Hey, look, the market's at 15%. We're at 30% for in the fall or whatever we're looking." And we do that a lot, where we send an email out to all of our owners and we're like, "Hey, this is where the market average is at. We're double it right now. Our goal is to get this even higher, but here's what's going on." Or you get an awesome ranking from AirDNA and you're the best in the country, and you have to let people know that. It sucks to self promote, but if you don't do that, who's gonna do it? So doing that is important.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're coming up on time. This has been a really insightful sort of conversation for me. It's really interesting to sort of hear how the best of the best are doing it in terms of being able to scale and deliver guest satisfaction. And if there was maybe last question to each of you, because a lot of listeners, like maybe they've got a few properties, they're looking to do their next one, they've got a small property management company, and they're sort of looking to continue to grow it. If there's one piece of advice that you could sort of give either those owners sort of looking to take the next step, or property managers looking to figure out how to scale that next level, maybe it's 20 to 50 or 50 to 100, what would that one piece of advice be? And maybe we'll start with you, Joe.
Focusing on your reviews. It's kind of cool that we've been recognized for it, but it's true. We have done crazy things to make sure that we get a 5-star review from a guest that's bad. That's going to give us a bad review. And I actually prefer a review that says, "Hey, we came in, there was a problem, and Bach Bros fixed it." That to me is better than the property was amazing, because I know that things are wrong and it's how you fix it. And then I know we're coming up on time, but I'd love to just our team. Our team is awesome. Jack and Oscar do all of our communications. They're incredible. Bianca, owner relations. Carolyn, Tristan, Noe, Angela doing quality control checks. Our maintenance team, Braden and Joseph, they handle all the maintenance. And then subcontractors that go on and on and on. Jesse, lawn care. John does our spas. Eric's our plumber. Jeremy's our electrician. Robert does our appliances. George is our carpenter. Tim helps with our hotel occupancy taxes. Building a team around that vision is just so important, and focusing it. You said in the beginning, like, our goal is to make money as a company, but it's way easier to get there if you have happy guests. And getting the happy guests, if you can start there, everything else falls in line.
I think Joe nailed it. One only thing I'll add is, stay local. Don't spread yourself too thin. One really important key to success, I think, in a market like or in an industry like this, is to maintain quality over quantity. It's the most important thing you'll do. It's not only the property managers that struggle with this; it's every business, in the world. If you want to franchise a restaurant, it's very difficult to do something like that and maintain quality. Keep it in your backyard and build, like Joe said, a team of A players, people that share that same vision. Make sure it's, you're making decisions that are data driven. Reward your teammates. Make sure that they contribute. They're problem solvers. They're decision makers. Empower them to make those decisions, because you, as an individual, cannot do it all. You have to lean on others, and you have to trust. And it takes a lot of heart and a lot of hard work. But it's, I really appreciate the accolade and the being recognized for this. It's, again, like Joe said, our team. This is our team's win, not ours. And we're very appreciative to be working with them and continue to grow this.
Awesome. Well, Max, Joe, I really appreciate you guys joining, and congratulations again on the award, and looking forward to seeing if you guys can defend it for next year.
We will definitely, we'll be here next year. We're excited for it. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.